edition of Gas. I am Gresh. He is Jason Anik.
You were playing everybody and we're winning the game last night.
The head coach is fighting people on the sidelines.
What do you got for me?
I know you're a part of the Tight Pants Society.
No fucking play is that a gimme, right?
Let's go! Oh, you know you missed these two beautiful faces coming to you here on this Tuesday morning on Gas Morning Drive. I am Gresh. He is Jason Anik. Woo! Who would have known that Pacers ticket would have caused you to go buy a whole new condo? Look at that fancy backdrop you got there. Golly, it's good to be Jason Anik holding tickets that his brother was winging out like they were Frisbees at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, right. Well, for those of you who don't know, and by the way, I come at you live, Los Angeles, California, a little vacation in between school and camp. My wife is from LA, so we creep out here from time to time. I hope you hear me okay on this headset.
You're great, brother. No, you're good.
So, yeah, so for those of you who don't know, we had a ticket 42-1 on the Pacers to win the Eastern Conference. Cash, check. But what I will say about that, just to back it up for those of you who haven't joined us on Gas Tuesday mornings, 11 a.m. live, we appreciate you. John, every season, my brother, John, beginning of March, buys a bunch of future tickets for his two bosses. Who's going to win the World Series? Who's going to win the Eastern Conference in the NHL postseason? Whatever it is, Stanley Cup, all these different tickets, 10 or 12 on the board. And one of them I suggested was Pacers at 42-1 on March 6th to win the Eastern Conference. It just felt off. I've said this over and over again. Last season when they played the Celtics and they got swept in the first two games, I thought they gave the Celtics really all they could handle. Halliburton was great. He missed the last two games. And I just felt like that price was off. They were, I think, approaching the top four at that point. And, you know, I didn't really believe in Cleveland, New York, and I thought it was going to be tough for the Celtics to repeat. Anyway, hedged about 1,000, Gresh, if I'm being honest, right, on the Knicks, because my nightmare, just like Jaylen Brown, the Knicks beating, Jaylen Brown said it was like dying, but, losing to the Knicks. So anyway, thrilled New York's eliminated. I know we'll get into that, but yeah, cash it, baby.
Cashing the big ticket on what I think will be a pretty quick NBA Finals. And I know that you and I will unpack that a little bit later on because we are going to get to crapping on the Knicks, and there is some Giannis buzz. But I think today we need to start with, I guess it would be the biggest story in New England sports right now, Jay, because Steph Diggs, wide receiver of the New England Patriots, was a high dollar ad. And he had a little boat video during OTAs last week where it was Steph Diggs. And I'm sorry, but if we're going to be real about this, when they showed all of those girls huddled around him, it looked like the beginning of a Bang Bros video. Just on a boat instead of a bus, in all seriousness. Like, I'm thinking, when are these people all going to start getting naked? And then there was the little box of something that I'm going with that Steph Diggs opened up. One of the girls grabbed. She was trying to get in there. He was basically like, yeah, maybe you want to get off camera or whatever. I have some thoughts on this based on the internet sleuths, but just start with what did you make of Diggs doing that? And then the Mike Vrabel response the next day of, hey, we want to make sure we make good decisions.
So our producer, Cody Merrow, first texted us this video, and I think his comment was WR1 being WR1. And I was like, yeah, like, give me all of this. Dude's a pimp. Call me young and naive, whatever it is. Hey, call me young anytime you want. But my first reaction was like, okay, Steph Diggs, right? Now, I wasn't making the immediate correlation that maybe organized team activity would be a better place. But, you know, I used to think the O stood for optional. I know that they're voluntary. Mm-hmm. And look, we could talk about this if we just isolate sort of the OTAs, right? Different players at different stages, right? Carlton Davis was enjoying himself as well. He's new to town. I would have loved him to be there too. But, you know, Tom Brady was always a staple at these OTAs. Mm-hmm. But in the last 5 years of his career, he didn't go to OTAs. And at the end of his Patriots career, I think when he had 1 foot out of the water and didn't want to be there anymore, he certainly wasn't there. So I guess I like that Mike Vrabel's there to handle this and not Gerard Mayo. Can you imagine what Gerard Mayo would have done? And who knows? I mean, do you think Vrabel reached out to him personally?
Yeah, oh yeah. There was 100% a conversation, and let me be clear about this. There was somebody online, Jay, who zoomed into what Steph Diggs was holding, and I guess there is a well-known like Kush place, either in Florida or where Steph Diggs was, and it looked like it was in one of those containers, and someone zoomed in, and it looked like it was nothing more than a pink lighter once they did the zoom in, right? And like, yeah, like a pre-roll tin is exactly, Cody Merrow nailed it in the chat for us. That so I didn't jump to this guy's handing out party favors on a boat like he's Diddy or something like that. I don't go there. I think there are bigger concerns. There are three things that I'm hearing about Steph Diggs right now in terms of him being in Foxborough. Number one, he's around, but not enough. Number two, there's little to no mentoring going on right now. And number three, this guy's trying to come back from a knee injury where they've got to be sure, like being on a wobbly boat, right, doesn't feel like the best thing for a guy who's trying to come back from a torn ACL. So I think there are warning signs in Foxborough of, maybe he does have some of those bad wide receiver one tendencies. And I think with Vrabel, it's early enough to kind of nip it in the bud. But what I think we might have to give up on, Jay, which is kind of devastating, quite honestly, is this guy maybe holding the hands of these young wide receivers and being a mentor. I'm now actually kind of happy Mac Hollins is in the room as another veteran guy for people to be able to follow in case Diggs goes on, a Diva 1 type of year.
Mac Hollins was helping the coaches at one of the organized team activities when he wasn't even playing or practicing himself. So that's all you need to know there. I didn't want the Patriots to sign Stephon Diggs until they did. And I was all fired up about it, So when I first heard that name bandied about, I thought maybe not the best fit. And so this doesn't completely surprise me. On Sundays, if he's one of the wide receivers on the roster, I think that's still ultimately going to make me happy. The mentorship doesn't really bother me. I didn't have much expectations there. I think he's still early 30s. Just kind of is what it is. Never struck me as the most mature guy. But as long as he puts in the work himself, I think things may be okay. But if you're asking me today, June 3rd, if I could do a redo, I'd say, yeah, I think the room has some depth in it already, and move on maybe.
You could have gone with another veteran wide receiver that would have fit a little more of to maybe what you're looking for. And the thing with Diggs is there's no question he is explosive. He can dominate a game. But let's also remember, this was a guy who, when it really got pressurized and they were in Buffalo, in Kansas City, about to lose again, that guy's ranting up and down the sidelines, losing his mind, to where even the Bills were like, okay, we've sort of played this out. It's kind of time for us to move on. And I do wonder about, now luckily, I say luckily, but the Patriots are likely to not be in real high pressure situations this year where someone like Diggs might crack, right? Like maybe a playoff game, but he's not going to lose his mind over that. At least I wouldn't think so. But there is that element of the guy where he can break, he can crack, he needs managing. And Bill Belichick was, Jay, forever worried about the one guy that I have to treat special. And when it got to that point with Randy Moss, he was out the door because there was the Tom Brady example there. Well, now New England has none of that. Now it's up to the head coach to set the standard and hold the standard, at least right now, especially with a player like this, because, Jay, I don't think there are going to be many even veterans in there who, if Diggs really goes off the reservation, I don't know how many, like there's no more Dietrich Wise, right? We would hear with Willie McGinnis. I used to hear it from the old players all the time. Hey, listen, nobody, when Willie got involved, everything stopped type thing. There's no one like that in that room. If this guy does start to act up, it's kind of all on Vrabel, I feel like.
Yeah, well, and I unless I'm mistaken, is Kyle Duggar the longest tenured player on the team? I mean, that may be the case. And so, yes, your point is well taken there. But frankly, Gresh, I thought Diggs would be a good fit if they win games and a terrible fit if they lose games, right? He is not good for culture if things ain't going well. You feel me, right? Where things are going well, I think things could be just fine. But ultimately, there's so many good things to talk about with this organization from a leadership standpoint, especially with the coaching staff, that frankly, I got a lot to talk about on the offensive side of the ball that doesn't have to do with Diggs. You feel me?
No, I feel you. And, there's a lot of buzz about the running backs, a lot of buzz. And I know you're not a Ramondre guy, but I think there's some excitement of having two guys that are that are big, that have explosiveness, that can catch the ball out of the backfield. I think there's a lot of people kind of smarting up at Foxborough on that now. There's just something amiss with Diggs, and hopefully they can figure it out. And by the way, you did nail it, Jay. Duggar is now the longest tenured New England Patriot, and he came to the organization in 2000.
2020, you mean?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, 2020. Yeah, my bad.
Hey,
I was going to say that's a Brady type run from Duggar there, but there's and on the defensive side, I think there's a lot of buzz building about this defensive line, because there was the old line that a defensive coordinator when I was at URI had, and he would hold his fingers up like this, and he'd go, we need to be mobile, agile, and hostile. And that's what I think this defense is turning into up here in New England.
Well, certainly with the head coach and defensive coordinator, that would jive very well. I want to talk about the offensive side of the ball for a second. I want to talk about Josh McDaniels. And you may not know this, but when John and I came on your show with Fourier back in the day, and we were talking all this smack about Mac Jones, I could have talked as much smack that day about Josh McDaniels. I've never been a Josh McDaniels guy. I appreciated what he did with the Patriots as the offensive coach, but all the different head coaching, whether it was the failure in Denver, whether it was going to the Colts and then sort of reneging on that, Raiders, whatever it may be. But Josh McDaniels really does seem to have matured, and it just seems to be in a totally different place. And I just can't say enough about this fit with him in this spot. I just want to read you a quote of McDaniels. Quote, when you take a lot of people from different backgrounds, they have such good experience and wisdom, it makes a lot of sense for me to learn from them. End quote. For me to learn from them. To hear Josh McDaniels say me to learn from them, I just feel as though he's in a totally different place. And I think that the offense is going to need leadership, no matter how good Vrabel is as a head coach, right? No matter how much we like Will, how much we believe the ceiling is very high on Drake May. McDaniels is really the key. And everything I have read or seen about Josh McDaniels, he is a big reason why I think there's going to be such a big jump this season.
If I can make a case to show McDaniels a little grace up to this point in his career, clearly when he's running the ship, not a good deal. It didn't work the first time around, but let's also remember in Denver, he was like 34 years old, I think, or something like that. So I know we're in the era of the younger coach, but a lot of times the younger coach will flame out, and McDaniels did that. And then with the Raiders, it clearly didn't work. But when he's been an offensive coordinator, other than the year with the Rams, I think it was, where he had not Sam Darnold, but Sam Bradford as his starting quarterback, he's always worked for Bill. And what is Belichick all about? I'm not going to allow you to do something that can cause us to lose the game. So it's been different kind of offensive creativity. But Jay, now I think in working for Vrabel, it is all bets are off. You don't have to run this. If you want to work in some zone read, Bill Belichick would never do that with a guy like Drake May. He wouldn't put the risk out there of getting the guy hurt. Now with Vrabel, sort of the mind is open a little bit. So I'm very curious this year, Jay, for what version of Josh McDaniels we get, because he's working with a guy who is now much more open-minded about pro football than Belichick was. And I think there'll be some creativity in there, especially with Drake May and his legs, that will allow the quarterback to kind of keep the chains moving in the right direction, even if it isn't going great. Josh, to me, has got a good feel as a play caller, but I would say, let's remember this, this guy worked for Bill Belichick for a long time. Now it's almost like the shackles are off of Josh McDaniels as an offensive coordinator.
Well, yes, and I like that you use the word open-minded, and I also think Josh is very open-minded. I've read some comments about him talking about running some stuff that he's never run before, but the personnel lends itself to some of this stuff, and he's all about running it. And I think the real sort of between the lines, what I read is what you just said about Drake May using his legs. But there has been some talk about Drake May sort of not repeating mistakes and being a quick study. To me, that was sort of a trend I saw a little bit in the regular season with Drake May. While he wasn't perfect, and maybe I'm mistaken, but I don't think he made the same mistakes over and over again. And I think, I hate to say this, right, but it just popped in my head, so I'm going to say it. Drake May doesn't always seem to be the most articulate on the microphone, if that's safe to say, right?
Oh, yeah.
However, though, that don't necessarily matter, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that things aren't all, and the webs aren't connecting upstairs, right? Brett Favre, listen to Brett Favre talk his rookie season or second season versus by the end of his career where he had the media sort of eaten out of his hand. So I think Drake May is pretty sharp. Bro, every week I get excited in a different way. That Stephon Diggs stuff can't curb my enthusiasm. I think Vrabel will handle it. And ultimately, we've used the term before, you got to break eggs to make an omelet. And all 53 ain't going to be choir boys.
No, that's very true. And you need some swagger on this football team.
Yep.
That's why Travis Hunter was so enticing, I think, for both of us, because if you look at the way he's handling business down in Jacksonville, just that one guy alone has ignited that city in terms of, hey, wow, we got a guy, and with the Patriots, it feels like the guy is Vrabel. And then who are going to be the others that are going to kind of fill in behind him? And I will say this, I think there's still one move that the Patriots can make. Now, here's the thing. I don't know what that is, but they have a bunch of cap space. They have draft picks that they can move around with. And if you think you're going to be good, if internally, Jay, they're projecting, hey, we can win 9 or 10 games, then you're talking about trading playoff value picks. So do you trade those before people get hip to the fact you might be good in thinking, wow, the Patriots are going to be mid. I'm going to get me, say a top 15 pick in whatever round, when in reality, it's going to be a little more in the high 20s because you expect yourself to be good. So the essence and the timing of kind of what they do, and there's Trey Hendrickson out there. I don't know if they need another defensive lineman, but if some wide receiver gets his nose out of joint early in camp, I wonder if the Patriots could be there to swoop in, because if it's literally a matter of we got to bake in $30 million to someone this year, oh my, then that knocks their cap space down to $37 million. Like, it's there for them to write a big check for somebody this year, skip some of the process, bring in a wide receiver, make them happy, and then you're paying that guy accordingly as you go, not having like a balloon payment of $53 million at the end of a contract.
Well, and Cody just dropped Mark Andrews' name into the chat. That's interesting to me. I really trust the place in which the organization is at right now to make whatever sort of decision that is. But even without Stephon Diggs, I really am very confident in the emergence of a nice handful of guys from that room. Kyle Williams being at the top of my list, right? Rave reviews so far. I said on a prior episode, I think they hit the wide receiver. And I know that we're a couple months before game one. I don't care. So I really believe in Kyle Williams. And if Kendrick Bourne is healthy, right? He hasn't been there at the OTAs, has he?
I haven't heard really anything about Kendrick Bourne.
So if he's healthy, I still believe in him a little bit. And I do think some of the emergence of some of those young guys potentially. Cody thinks we need a corner. I hear you. I think we're pretty good in cornerback. But ultimately, I think that money, you've alluded to the fact that they could be making one move. It's not going to surprise me if that move isn't out there. Trey Hendrickson, I don't know. I don't see that happening.
They don't need another defensive lineman. I think they're loaded up there. It would be for more offensive help or another offensive lineman. Right. This guy they signed, Schweitzer, is in a battle with Cole Strange right now. So Laken Robinson, I guess, last year's draft pick, apparently is getting no run or no love. We've heard nothing about Caden Wallace. Caden Wallace, the kid from Penn State last year, 3rd round pick. He's supposed to be a swing tackle. I'm assuming he'll sort of maintain that role this year. But I don't rule out adding an offensive lineman. And I know it won't be Jonnu Smith, who the Steelers apparently are not trading for, but you could add another tight end to this offense because I like Hunter Henry. I do believe he's either 30 or turning 30, so he's getting that kind of magic number in the NFL. And Austin Hooper does nothing for me as a tight end. Yeah, so I can see them grabbing a tight end.
Quickly about Hunter Henry, I think he's super tight with Drake May, if I'm not mistaken. And that one element alone, I'd love to see him at least stick around for that one reason alone, because I do believe in chemistry and continuity and relationship building and confidence for Drake May. So I think that piece is pretty important, actually, Henry sticking around. But yeah, if you could flip him and bring in a guy like Kyle Pitts, I think that's
look, Henry to me, Jay, is going nowhere. Here's the question. Like, he's the number one tight end right now. But can you find the next guy to where Hunter Henry can seamlessly transition to a number two? You start to lower the snaps as he gets older because you found your other guy. So 31 this year for Hunter Henry. And I think if the Pats can find that dude, that transition will begin. But I think what you say is 100% spot on. Like, Hunter Henry will be on this roster for the next couple of years, in part because of the Drake May element of it. And you're right. He becomes kind of the, trusted old school sort of tight end that that when you get into important playoff games, he's going to be where he needs to be. And is somebody that the young quarterback can kind of lean on. And Cody in the chat is popping us because he brought up Mercedes Lewis and Ben Coates.
Ben Winter Coates.
Yeah, Ben Coates and Ben Coates and Sean Kemp share something in common. I don't know if you know this or not.
No, what's that?
They hate Father's Day.
Ben Coates and Sean Kemp hate Father's Day, really?
Yeah, because I think combined they have a full football team between them if everybody has been following along. But gotcha. Okay, I digress.
Cromartie got a few.
But Cromartie is like talking about it out there. These are the dudes who are like, I don't want to go to the mailbox and find a Father's Day card from one I forgot about. The Anthony Edwards plan.
So in terms of Patriots excitement for fans, and I consider us fans, right? Yes. Joe Rogan always calls them as broadcasters professional MMA fans. But as a Patriots fan, I'll never forget the feeling I got when Drake May started playing and I saw with my two eyeballs the future of the organization. I couldn't have been less interested in last season until he was playing. And as a Patriots fan, and maybe it's because I'm older and I lived through a lot of it, but it was really hard to see Tom Brady play in another uniform. Mm-hmm. And winning another title and have it not being New England was difficult. And all the Mac Jones and watching Mac Jones and knowing he wasn't the guy. So to me, I'm trying to imagine what I'm going to feel like on opening Sunday for the Patriots season, because I feel half my age right now when I talk about this team.
Our family, my father-in-law has had season tickets through the business forever. And a lot of times there'll be like one or two clients. It will be like, hey, do you have tickets this week or something? Or he'll like donate them to Brown University and they get a week or something like that. There's never been more people kind of calling him, reaching out and saying, hey, do you have this week open? Do you have that week open? And normally that doesn't happen. So there is a kind of a rebirth in a way. It's almost like when you bottomed out with Bill, it was one thing. When you bottomed out with Mayo, it felt like another. And that's where I say it was almost like the death of the organization in a way. And they were on the table and they're on the gurney and it's, oh no, we might lose the patient. And then here comes Mike Vrabel and you restart the heart. And then now he's completely back, having beaten whatever disease it is, and the organization didn't go away. I think it was such a critical juncture to get it right and have someone with credibility and believability, because that was the one thing with Mayo. You thought he was playing the role of a head coach, whereas Mike Vrabel has walked in and shown what a head coach is supposed to do.
I tell you what, had Mayo not been fired after this one season, and I understand Kraft promised him the gig, and had he not been fired after, and we talked about this as soon as it happened months ago. Had that not happened, I think it would have set the organization back another possibly 5 to 10 years. I really do. And was it Mac Jones' rookie season when they were 9-4, at one point in the 1 seed? Was that his rookie year or his second? That was his
no,
rookie
year? That was rookie year, because that was when they ended up 10-7. He threw for 3,800 yards, and then it went downhill after that.
But what I want you to know is when they were 9-4 that season and they were the 1 seed, I wasn't nearly as excited as I am today. For real, Gresh. Like, I'm not trying to say I told you so. I knew Mac, you know what I mean? I've never seen a worse 9-4 team, and I've never seen a worse 1 seed through 13 games in an NFL season in my life. So I guess for me, I just think there have been a lot of shit over the last 4 or 5 years, and gosh, a diamond feels like it's come out. It's not just about this season. You know what I mean? I really think they've set themselves up to put themselves in a position to get that 7th trophy.
And even if Drake May kind of tops out as a Baker Mayfield, right? I don't think he's going to be as inconsistent as Baker Mayfield, but you get what I'm saying.
I do.
Even if he got that, you feel like, okay, we're closer to having it right than wrong. Because I think there are some expectations on Drake May that it is, well, he's going to be the next Tom Brady or the next Josh Allen or whatever. And it's like, let's slow the roll a little bit here. I think we need to readjust some expectations. But to your point, Jay, when you get Mac Jones and you feel like, all right, you hit on a guy, and then you put him with a dude who should not be running anything anywhere in Matt Patricia, that's where Bill Belichick was complicit in his own demise. And I guess the one good thing is, like, even if Vrabel had kept AVP, I would have been it wouldn't feel the same compared to having Josh McDaniels in there. Like Vrabel and AVP versus Vrabel and McDaniels with this quarterback, it feels like you got a real chance to bring out whatever is inside this kid. And if there's greatness, I think we've seen Josh do that before with a couple of different quarterbacks, because there's the whole Matt Castle part of this as well that's on his resume.
Belichick loved to say, I'm going to do what's in the best interest of the football team.
Yes.
And I think Mike Vrabel lives that more than Belichick. I think with Belichick, sometimes he said it, but certain times was doing things in his own best interest.
100%.
And I genuinely believe that Mike Vrabel runs this business with no ego. And I think that's hard to do. And I think there are certain guys that maybe wouldn't have brought Josh McDaniels in for whatever reason, threat to eventually be that.
It's a connection. The connection to Bill, the connection to the past. I want to turn the page type thing. Yeah,
exactly. And you see David Andrews retire, saying he didn't want to play for any other organization. Mike Vrabel could have been like, oh, man, he's been here forever. He showed up at my press conference. Let's just give the guy. Nope. Not in the best interest of the football team. And that's why, as a fan, every day I think that this jump could be bigger than maybe we think.
Let me back up your point real quick with a little intel. Apparently there was originally when Vrabel got there was a discussion with David Andrews about, hey, we like you, we want you here type thing. We know you're getting to the end. Basically it was, well, we kind of plan on keeping you. Then Bradbury comes along and you have the draft, and they realize, all right, we're going to be okay at that position. And even though Vrabel had kind of told Andrews, hey, you're going to be here, ultimately it was just a phone call that ripped the Band-Aid off. And I think David was hurt by that, maybe a little bit from what I understand. But at the end of the day, he got over it. He did his, press conference there. And I don't want to say swallowed pride, but everybody kind of got over it. But to your point on doing things that is best for the organization, most would have thought keeping David Andrews around for one more year, even if you groom someone, would have been the right thing to do. And when they repurposed the position, Vrabel was not afraid to kind of go back on his word to the player and say, listen, it's what's really best for us. And you nailed it. Bill did things that at times got in the way of that statement of his.
And unless I'm mistaken, there is a connection with Bradbury and Drake May, whether Bradbury earns that starting position or not. But there is some sort of familial connection there. And you can be sure that Vrabel was aware of that. And David Andrews, only 1 year with May, and he was banged up a little bit last year too. So it just kind of is what it is. And ultimately, Bill Campbell go lead that room, okay? Bill Campbell go be that offensive lineman, lead that room, okay?
I think so. I think so because if you've ever met Mike Onwenu, he is not a big sort of rah-rah guy. The connection was Bradbury's brother-in-law played baseball with Drake May's brother. So that was kind of the 6 degrees of May separation there for a guy like Bradbury. And I think the kid from Georgia needs a year. And then he's gonna have a chance to get in there. That, by the way, the center spot might also save Cole Strange, because if for some reason someone gets dinged up, they've at least cross-trained Strange to probably be more backup depth than anything else if he doesn't end up winning that left guard starting job.
I will go to my grave thinking that Belichick just like nobody's talking about this guy. I can mold him. Like, get the fuck out of here. I'm sorry. I know what Belichick has created, but when I went on your show 2 years ago, it was time. Brady should have been the one they retained. Don't get that Cole Strange pick. Belichick gets so cute in the draft. No more bullshit. Go ahead.
He started almost every game he's played. Like, that's where I always push back and be like, I know we look for everyone to be a superstar, but he did fit in. We'll see if he still does, because they're also changing the run game again. And there's a little worry here for me, Jay. It went from Cam Newton, then it was back to the Pats run game, then it was Matt Patricia's run game, then we tried to go to Bill O'Brien's running game, then we had Alex Van Pelt's running game, and now we're going to go back to Josh McDaniels' running game. So it's now a 5th year where the offensive line, like when Fat Patricia was in there, it was they're going to do the zone stuff. And they figured out real quick they didn't have the personnel to be able to do it, and Matt couldn't coach it. So I am interested to see what style of run game the Patriots land on, considering they have jacked around with it here for 5 or 6 years. I'll tell you what, you know what's really going to help with Drake May, and I'm not kidding, the fact that Josh McDaniels coached Cam Newton. Think about what they did with Cam and how they had to reinvent the offense that year because that guy can't read a book and he couldn't hit a bull in the ass with a fistful of rice. So you had to make sure that you could do, I mean, think about it. That guy had all those rushing touchdowns. That was one of the years where I think McDaniels learned some plays and be like, okay, if I get somebody who can actually go think out there like Drake May, now we start to see the next layers of some of the stuff that they were calling with Cam Newton that he was too mentally or physically inept to be able to run. So off of what you brought up earlier, I think there's some translatability there, let's call it.
Well, and I love how long we stay on the Patriots, right? We could skip over the Red Sox in 2 minutes, but I do hope that the organization is smart enough to put some film on for Drake May of Lamar Jackson and Jaden Daniels and watch the way they dance out there, for lack of a better word, because I've talked about this I feel like I talk about it every week, but I think that is oftentimes quarterbacks that can move a little bit. Those plays are best when it's a broken play here or there, or even if, a nice little sort of boot that's designed to maybe get 6-7 yards. And I think Drake May is such an athlete and such a competitor. He has to be able to shut that off and allow himself to be a little bit of a specialist at the position. Because ultimately, I mean, you watch the dude play basketball and you can understand why he's just, guns blazing every step of the way. And you got to be out there for 18 weeks.
Yeah, I think they can manage that. I hope they can. And we very much hope that the kid Drake May can hold up. And now with that, ladies and gentlemen, we transition to the 29-33 Boston Red Sox, who are not trending well. And you know what we're about to get? My man Christian Fourier, Jay, would say FE, which stood for fake enthusiasm. And sometimes as an organization, you are trying to get people enthusiastically to follow you. Like, boy, Mike Vrabel's here. I'm back on the Patriots. And now it is oh boy, we're sinking a little bit. People are woofing about Cora. Here comes Roman Anthony on the call up. Here they come. Here comes your fake enthusiasm of we got to do our sleight of hand. Hey, it's bad over here, but look over there. Here's the guy that they're sneaking out of the Woo Sox clubhouse because he's so well known. This is a wild video, Jay. of at the Woo Sox up in Worcester. For those who remember the Paw Sox, God rest, but it's now the Woo Sox. And Roman Anthony had so many people lined up to like mob him to try to get autographs or whatever that they put him in a like a laundry cart, covered him up, wheeled him out to the bus, literally stood as human shields as the guy hopped out, threw his bag underneath the bus to be able to get on the thing, because there were all of these, strap hangers, kids, whatever, looking to get their whatnot sign. Because if you followed Red Sox baseball, you know what is about to come. It's almost that date on the calendar where they keep another year of control on the player. They're going to manipulate the whole thing. People have been screaming for Roman Anthony, and in a week, the Red Sox will go, shit, we're 6 games under 500. What do we do? Call the kid up. That'll bring people to the ballpark.
Dude, it's a nightmare. I mean, honestly, what a difference a couple weeks make. Bregman goes out. They were 4.5 games out. Now they're 9 games out. Garrett Crochet, who they signed to an extension, is going to win a World Series in Boston at some point. I believe that. I really do. I mean, the fact that they have, there's a little bit of the glass half full stuff first.
I love it.
Last time out, 12 Ks, struck out the side in the 7th.
He's been great. Yeah.
6 of their last 8 losses for the Red Sox, they've scored 2 runs or less, right? And I think most of those, there was only 1 game where they scored 2 runs out of those 6 losses. Just brutal, right? Yesterday, with that Richard Fitz, who the fuck is that guy? Richard Fitz, right?
His name is Dick.
Dick Fitz, whatever. Yeah, exactly. There you go. 6 runs, 3 home runs in the first inning, and then they battle back and they lose 7-6. I mean, it's unbelievable to me. They've had you talked about the record in 1-run games. It must be 6-16, 6-17 at this point, whatever it may be. They have found unbelievable ways to lose games. But gosh, as we said a couple weeks ago, it's May or whatever, hanging around a little bit. I feel totally different today. I don't believe in this team long term. I think by the time Bregman comes back, it's going to be too late. Gosh, I hate to say look toward 2026, but I would really be wanting to have conversations with Bregman now. I know I brought this up the last couple of weeks. And yeah, you talked about it last week. Bring up the young guys, whether it's fake enthusiasm or not. It's really hard to believe in where this team is going this season at this point.
I agree. And Crochet, I didn't realize this, Jay, in the American League, right, where they had a head start in compiling and sitting on hitters. He's got a 1.98 ERA. And I know the word BABIP and VORP and blah, blah, blah. No, I don't give a shit. Like, you know what? Like, honestly, I mentioned last week, Aaron Judge 2 months into the year is almost hitting 400. I don't care what the new age stuff says. That's amazing. This guy's got an under 2 ERA, and they're 4 games under 500 right now. And it's more than just Bregman. This whole thing with Devers has been completely mishandled and backfired. And if there's one thing that the organization, Jay, is completely guilty of when it comes to Devers, is not understanding the sensibility of the player. There are some guys you can go to, and like Dustin Pedroia, if you said to Pedroia, I need you to catch, he would have got his little rear end back there and would have found a way to get through a game. He'd have been looking over and getting the signs, but he would have done it, right? And that's the thing with Devers. They missed on how sensitive he would be to him. They gave him multiple mixed messages to a guy that doesn't speak the language very well either. So how much give and take has there really been? And that's the part. It feels like that cloud now, Jay, to me, is kind of hanging over this team a little bit. And they're not going to, that's got to come to a resolution finally at some point before they can kind of move on.
I agree. And as much as we both love Alex Cora, he's got to take some blame for not being able to sort of manage Rafael Devers, right? He's the guy that I thought would get him excited about playing first base, or whatever it may be, or accepting the fact that he's the DH.
Going back to third. Like they needed him to go back to third, and he was like, "No, you told me I'm the DH. What the hell now?" It's like, okay, now you're really drawing a line in the sand.
Well, and when you think about Julian Edelman playing defensive back, or Matthew Slater, or these guys in the Patriots that sort of stepped in, and we did talk about what Devers did after the meeting with John Henry, but there's definitely something amiss there. And I'll tell you right now, maybe it's an untradeable contract, probably is, Gresh, but gosh, man, he's slugging it. Maybe see if anyone wants to bite on that and have a little bit of a reset at this point, because you talk about culture a lot, and you had said Tristan Casas, you just felt like for the culture was not a good fit. And to me, I know I'm an intangible guy. I know I'm a chemistry guy. But if you're going to hoist one, you got to have those intangibles and that chemistry and that playing for one another. And this team, even if they were to start to play really well, really hard for me to see them sort of galvanizing and rallying around one another.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm losing hope, and now my worry is getting a little bigger when it comes to, will the organization react harshly and get rid of the one guy who, even though he may not have handled Devers properly, the one guy that we know we think we can count on, and that is Alex Cora. It does, and you know what? Maybe they end up trading him. I know it's rare for the manager trades, but there are not a lot of teams that are willing to pay $8 million a year. And I also think John Henry doesn't want to swallow that. So maybe it's creative trades considered, and maybe there will be a call that will come in on Alex Cora. Let's crap on the Knicks. Can we do that, please? Can we crap on the Knicks? Because we would like to thank the New York Knickerbockers and their ass hat fans. Woo! What a bunch of jokers who are, yee, we won game 2. And they went out there and partied like they won the Eastern Conference. I know you cashed on the Pacers, but the floor is yours, Fred.
So I gave about 1,200 back hedging. I think I mentioned that earlier, right? Yep. It's really hard to win an NBA title. It's really hard to win a conference, right? When the Celtics won the Eastern Conference in 2022, and Marcus Smart was there, right? Shout out Marcus Smart, didn't win the real ring. I was so ecstatic that they got through the conference. And my younger brother, David, I sent him a text when the Knicks lost. And I said, I was being sarcastic. I was like, I can't remember. Is the phrase, they don't remember who lost the finals? Or is it they don't remember who lost the conference finals? I can't remember which one it is. But either way, we're not going to remember that. Maybe Ben Stiller will. But we're not going to remember this Knicks team, right? And I have to say, I didn't send any messages, push out any tweets after the Knicks were eliminated talking smack. That's not my style. And a lot of my friends from Boston, that's not their style either. But all these New Yorkers sliding up in my DMs. These guys are going to remain nameless, but there are two guys. One guy that works for the UFC that I don't know too well, sending me New York Knicks hype videos. My brother John Anik, Zach Candido, you know who I'm talking about, but he's sending me hype videos of the New York Knicks. Like, get the fuck out of here with that. And me, I just responded. I was like, I really wouldn't be doing that if I was in your position, right? And here they are now. I'm getting text messages from guys that this other guy barely started a business relationship with him. I never said I was a Celtics fan. He knew I'm from Boston. My condolences on the Celtics. I mean, it just blows my mind, but they're eliminated, and it's really hard to get back there, right? I wish them all the best of luck, the Knicks, getting back to that position next year. It's the wild, wild west right now in the NBA. We're going to get our 7th champion in 7 years. It's very difficult to get back there. A lot of ebbs and flows. So unless Giannis Antetokounmpo walks into town, I'm not as high on the Knicks as anyone else in terms of their future. I don't think they're as good as they were. And for those of you that didn't check out Paul Pierce's Instagram account, do yourself a favor.
Here's what I would say to those people who I don't know, but I'm going to eviscerate. Knick fans, you celebrated after making the Eastern Conference Finals. And those people who were hitting you up, Jay, were freaking out over making a conference final. Congratulations, you bums. You idiots who are owned by one of the worst owners in the NBA. Oh, and by the way, don't go on the radio and, God forbid, say that Jimmy Dolan Jimmy Dolan is not a straight shot, because that's his corny little band, because that's what rich little weenies do whenever they have to stop putting their effort into their businesses. They go out and they strum the old banjo, right? So that's number one, right? Number two is, every game you won in an East final, you celebrated like you won the thing. Right. So your fans are posers. And here's another one. I found this video the other day, and it's great. Of all people, and I'd like to see your Knick fan friends push back on Becky Hammon, who was at ESPN a couple of years ago doing some analyst work sitting beside Big Perk. And you know what she said? She goes, the Knicks ain't ever going to win nothing. Why? Because Jalen Brunson's too small. And Perk started to push back, and she goes, look at him. He's little. She goes, the only little guy that won was Steph Curry. He's 6'3" and the greatest shooter of all time. Those guys are not going to win. And Karl Anthony Towns left a team that went to the exact same spot in Minnesota that they were last year. He helped them get around further, but what do we find out about Cat in a big spot? Meow. Like he always is. So your Knicks fans can stuff it. They can go slide up the top of a greased pole because they had a 2-1 series lead, you losers.
It really was a fascinating series, and had that ball from Halliburton not gone to the rafters and dropped through the hole, maybe we're having a different conversation.
Correct.
But Becky Hammond's point is very well taken. And if we talk about the defensive side of the ball, Jalen Brunson's a huge liability on defense, regardless of how clutch he is. And gosh, I don't like anybody more, maybe SGA, but in terms of the mid-range game, I mean, gosh, Brunson, when he gets to his spot on the floor, the ball doesn't hit the rim. I get it, but there's two sides of it. And right, even a guy like Peyton Pritchard, who I'm more warm in the regular season. You see these guys on defensive end in the postseason, and you want them back on the bench. And Karl Anthony Towns, when he has that want to, he can do a lot on defense, in my opinion, but doesn't have that want to all the time.
Bingo.
So streaky in terms of the soul on the floor. And even a guy like Mikal Bridges, who I like very much, kind of streaky. Even OG Anunoby, who I like very much, a little streaky. A lot of these guys are streaky. And one thing about the Boston Celtics, yes, they didn't make it this season, but they've been a great defensive team over the last few years, and that's a big part of this. So ultimately, I think that trade with Minnesota kind of worked for both teams, but I'm not sure it takes them to another level. Anyway, I got nothing else on the Knicks. I'm just so happy that we can move on from that. Look forward to getting out to Vegas to cash my ticket, 42-1 on the Pacers.
Yeah, baby.
How excited are you for this finals? I'll start by saying I think it's going to be a little closer than most people do.
I am the opposite. This is either a sweep or the true gentleman's sweep. And let's just clean this up real quickly, Jay. The definition of a gentleman's sweep is one team goes up 3-0, then the other team gets their win in game 4, and then game 5 they get closed out. It's not the other team win game 1 and then you sweep it the rest of the way. And by the way, what I just described is also plus 650 on DraftKings for the gentleman's sweep. The sweep by OKC and last check was plus 250. So I think there are two things that are going to happen here, Jay. Number one, the coaching will be negated a little bit because Carlisle's not going to have a guy who is out to lunch on the other side as, say, Tom Thibodeau was. And the other thing is Oklahoma City has not one, not two, but three.
Hold on. I want to interrupt you for a sec. I'm sorry. You think Tom Thibodeau was out to lunch?
Yeah, absolutely. It took him too long to go to Mitchell Robinson. He ultimately sat Josh Hart and still played him starter minutes. So if you put the guy on the bench to still turn around and play him 35 minutes a game, it didn't make sense to me.
Fair. And no, I guess for me with Tom Thibodeau, I really respect his leadership style, and I think he did a lot to sort of keep them even keeled to get through that Celtics series. But I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to hear what you had to say about TT.
No, and the other thing too is we got to remember Carlisle's a Hall of Fame coach. Like there's a, you know what I mean? Like that's a guy Rick Carlisle might be the most underrated coach in the NBA because when fans talk about great coaches, people don't bring that guy up. So it is comparing Thibodeau to somebody who is going to go to the Hall someday. But I think Dagno knows his OKC team pretty well. And the way they got after Ant-Man was the top 3 defenders all rotated and gave him something a little different. And they're going to do the same thing to Halliburton. And here's the other deal, is that you look at Indiana, you don't know who the next best guy is. It's Siakam. Siakam's not a 30-point-a-night guy. He can get you 25. He'll have one game where he gets you 39, but he's not going to light it up. If Halliburton's having another one of these stellar 4-point performances in a big spot, Siakam's not going to score 50 to be able to cover it up. And that defense will rotate. And I think, honestly, between Lou Dort, SGA, and whichever one of the Williams you want to pick or whatever, I think those guys have the ability to eat up, and I mean eat up, Membhard, Halliburton, and ultimately Aaron Nesmith. So Siakam's got to score 50 for them to hang in. He might have a chance to, but I think those other dudes get eaten alive by that OKC defense.
Fair. And I think the series price, OKC minus 700 and Indiana plus 500,
That's where it should be.
Makes some sense. I do think Indiana matches up decently. And because Indiana can have a different dude potentially do it every night, I think that there is some potential there. I agree with you, and I believe in this OKC team to such an extent. And SGA is my favorite player in the league. I love watching him. We talked about last week, just, 1 for 2 from 3 on the game. You know what I mean? 12 for 14 from the line. But I do think Indiana could make this interesting. One of the bets that I'm looking at is over 5.5 games. And you probably don't like this, but I see it at plus 115. I just think perhaps we get a 6-game series here, I like a little juice there, right? But to me, ultimately, if gun to my head, I think 4-1 OKC, like your point, gentlemen sweep, right? But looking for opportunities, there's not a lot of opportunities here. I also, the team that just, cleared me 42-1, I don't mind. That's sort of a creative way for me to say maybe they get a couple games. I do believe in Halliburton as a leader, and I do believe that sometimes when he's confident, he can really perform above maybe his skill set. And fascinating, SGA and Halliburton, both guys that are not drafted by the team that they're representing in the finals right now, which is fascinating. But yeah, I think as this conversation goes on, I think maybe I'm getting a little bit over my skis with Indiana. Nobody's given them a shot playing with house money. They got there, and I think potentially, but when you think about Miles Turner and Pascal Siakam down low, those the guy, right? I mean, those are your two guys, Obi Toppin. They're just not that tall. I think Holmgren's going to have a great series. So.
Yeah, I think, and that's the thing with Holmgren. He's another one of those guys that if he's on, he's more of a 15-point, 10 rebound type guy than he is somebody that's going to completely blow up like an SGA. So Giannis's name came up in connection to Boston once again. This time it was Worldwide Windhorst on ESPN, who had mentioned that the Celtics could be among the teams who could be in on Giannis Antetokounmpo. And there's, without giving people the ice cream headache, both are second apron teams. So you almost have to do a 1-for-1 swap and then throw the sweeteners in there. Like it would be potentially Giannis for Jaylen Brown and then draft picks, or if you have to get a third team involved to make it work, that would be the way. Maybe there's another second apron team out there who can ultimately jump in on all of this. But this is now the third time people other than Rubes like you and I, who just do shows like this each and every Tuesday at 11 a.m. right here as you are watching. But there are smart people that are starting to bring it up. Do you think there's some fire to the smoke that is out there of Giannis in Boston?
I don't think so. It would shock me if it happened. And I believe it was Miles Turner had some comments about how these super teams maybe aren't working anymore, right?
Correct.
Now, if you're telling me you got Giannis Antetokounmpo and Jason Tatum on the same roster, I just really love that potential fit, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think they offset each other well. I think they could be very dynamic together. So that gets me very excited. But I think it's a pipe dream. I think it's super unlikely. And the idea for Milwaukee that you're going to sort of maybe build around Jaylen Brown, it would have to be a very big deal around Jaylen Brown for that to entice Milwaukee to move on from Giannis, even though Brown may be a little bit younger. I want to just bring one more thing to you, right? This is from Yahoo's Vishwisha Kumar, if it's the right name, because this is the Kool-Aid I'm drinking. Quote, the front office is reportedly exploring a fire sale that would keep only the core of Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Derek White, while shopping supporting pieces like Porzingis, Horford, and maybe even Drew Holiday, depending on their future plans. Now, to me, this is like a pipe dream. I don't think this is real. I think it would be super challenging to do all that. However, if they can be creative with Brad Stevens in this next season where you're sort of punting a little bit, right? You got Jaylen Brown and Derek White and everybody else gone. Jason Tatum healing himself up. Maybe you don't make the postseason, but I would love nothing more at this stage, because we still got a fresh banner hanging on Causeway Street. I would love to build around Tatum, Brown, and Derek White and gut the roster. What do you think about that?
I would not be against it at all. I know there are complications in doing so because of this stupid cap rules. Like, my God, I become a financier, for God's sakes. But the Celtics are not allowed to aggregate contracts and use more than 100% of the traded player exception, which means they have to match almost perfectly to be able to get something done. And that's where it gets a little complicated, because there is a tiny bit of wiggle room in there. But to your point, if you're trading $35 million Kristaps Porzingis, you can't bring back $20 million in money. You have to bring back all that dough to be able to match it, and then maybe peel people off your roster. So the Celtics have gotten so good, and it's such a point to the cap, to where they might have to trade for guys where you just go, he was a throw-in to make it work. They're going to cut his ass at the end of the year and just get rid of the guy. And that takes a lot of mental gymnastics and creativity for Brad Stevens. I think the other thing too, Jay, is, does ownership, which has now changed, say to Brad, listen, do everything you can to set me up for the next 5 years. And here's another 5-year window. Let's try to figure out how to reinvent this team. Or do the new owners come in and just say, no, keep it together. To hell with it. We'll pay $400 million in tax or something like that. Let's keep it together to go try to win one more. That's the great equalizer in this. We don't know exactly where ownership is, but getting Giannis is tantalizing, because having really Giannis and Tatum, like, I love Jaylen Brown, and he is a wonderful human being, a credit to the human race, a hell of a basketball player. But if I'm getting Giannis, JB, go set up shop in Milwaukee, brother, because we love you, but thanks a bunch. You brought us an all-time great player.
I hear you. Exactly. Well put. I agree with that. And I will say, while I think it is wildly outrageous that the Celtics are going to be able to just build around Tatum, Brown, and Derek White and be able to effectively move all these other pieces, Danny Ainge and Brad Stevens so often have been able to pull off trades where you're like, what? Who is signing on the other side of this, right? And even the Marcus Smart trade, for those Celtics fans who were like, oh gosh, that's so tough to lose Marcus Smart, it really felt right in the moment and felt like a very good haul for what you had to give out. So I wouldn't put anything past Brad Stevens, but I think he's going to have to be as creative as he's ever been to be able to really get this to where we want. And I ultimately think there's going to be a piece or two that is sticking around that maybe we didn't want it to. But hey, I don't mind Porzingis sticking around. I think he's going to –
I'm with you.
I like that player, and I like the fact that it was respiratory and not a knee.
No, I'm with you on that, and I think the Giannis stuff is great copy. It's great fun, but if it comes down to trading Jason Tatum for the guy, it's a non-starter, and I think everybody sort of knows that. But just quickly, I don't know if you saw this, Jay, because I know you're in transit and you got a lot going on, but Austin Ainge left the Celtics organization this week to go be basically the president of basketball ops of the Utah Jazz, where Dad works.
Yeah.
So that gets me thinking, while people are looking at Giannis, I wonder if Brad Stevens calls up Austin and says, hey, what are you thinking? Hey, you want a little bit, I know you love our guys. You were here forever. And that's maybe where you start in terms of trying to get something done and reshape the roster. UFC 316 is this weekend. It is in Newark, New Jersey. We will skip the whole fight night drama because I'm looking forward to what is really going to be a fantastic night of fights. And we get Merab and O'Malley 2. Initial thoughts on that, because I have strong ones. Basically, here's all I need to get mine out. I think Merab's going to show him that he's just flat out a better fighter, And I love the Sugar Show. He's great copy. He's great for the UFC. But Merab's an animal. I just don't see him losing to O'Malley. Your thoughts?
I don't bet MMA, but I can't vocalize something against Merab Dvalishvili. However, gun to my head, I like Sean O'Malley. He's gotten off social media. He's gotten off of the ganja. I think he'll be back on the ganja when the fight's over, but the social media stuff is a real big thing. It can be so distracting. His coach, Tim Welch, talked about them showing up places to spar or train, and O'Malley's focus is, we could get some great content here. I've been in spots with my brother where it becomes so much about the content. It's just like, no, I believe in Sean O'Malley. I believe in the overall game. I believe in the size. But gosh, if you want me to say I like him to beat Merab, I would never go to the window with it. But yeah, I like O'Malley in this spot. And maybe some of that is because of the number plus 250. Merab defended in January against Umar Nurmagomedov. O'Malley was rehabbing or whatever it is. But O'Malley hasn't fought since their last fight at Sphere last year. So I like O'Malley. We got to talk about the co-main event too before we get out of here.
Oh, definitely. Just quickly on O'Malley. This is kind of the, I don't want to call it the last stand because it isn't, but you know what I mean. To your point, he's cleaned stuff up off the away from the octagon to where he's just focusing on fighting. And let's see if that ultimately does make a difference. Co-main event for the Bantamweight Championship, the champ Juliana Pena against Kayla Harrison. And this feels like the career sort of moment for Kayla Harrison right here. I know she fought in other organizations. She looks like a beast and is absolutely ready to just tear stuff up. Juliana Pena cannot be slept on, but leading into this, Jay, it almost feels like that Saturday night will be the Kayla Harrison coronation party in the minds of some people.
I know them both well, and I'll start with Juliana, who's in Bilal Muhammad's camp, right? Part of that Mike Valley VFS Academy. Mike Valley as her head coach. Juliana's won 2 titles, right? Won it, beat Amanda Nunes, shocked the world before, then came back, beat Raquel Pennington to get her 2nd title. No doubt she's going to be down. No doubt she's going to be able to fight through all of this. And if the fight goes on long, I think maybe Juliana does have a shot. I'd be curious to see Kayla Harrison if we get into those championship rounds, round 4 and round 5. But that line, minus 600. And Kayla Harrison is just an absolute animal, right? 2-time Olympic gold medalist in judo. But a couple things about these girls personally, right? Juliana, right? Flew with her daughter to Manchester, England to support Bilal Muhammad, repping Bilal Muhammad in the first row. John and I were in a car service with her and her daughter back to the airport in Manchester. Like, I have a lot of respect for Juliana. She's smart. She knows what to do in there. She doesn't fear anybody. And so I'm really excited for this opportunity for her. Kayla Harrison has been on our podcast twice. Remember the show. She's awesome. She and Bilal had a bet against each other in the Amanda Nunes-Juliana Pena fight because Kayla knows Amanda. So when Juliana beat Amanda, Kayla Harrison came on our show and had to sing karaoke on our show.
I like it.
She handled it so well, but I love Kayla. She's amazing as a human being. She's raising her sister's kids. Her sister's battled with addiction. She's raising 2 kids on her own. She's homeschooling them. I have so much respect for Kayla. I have so much respect for Juliana. My brother has talked about Kayla's star power, and I guess for the sport, I would really love to see the Ultimate Fighting Championship with Kayla Harrison as one of their champions. So we'll see what happens.
And it feels like if Kayla wins, that could set up a super fight, quote unquote, in the year of the quote unquote super fights that could happen. I know there are a lot of people that are jumping to, well, if Kayla wins, that might be the person that sort of brings Amanda Nunes out of retirement.
Oh, I think there's a great chance of that. She's talked about it a little bit. I think there's some potential there, but you also, when you talk about dollars for Amanda Nunes, hey, Amanda, you want to do a quick camp? I mean, what are the dollars for that type of fight? And I think for the women's game that has not been around that long, believe it or not, I think this would be a nice sort of resurgence because I think, and especially you look at last weekend where the main event gets wiped off the board. Macy Barber and Erin Blanchfield don't end up getting to compete. I think it would be very exciting for the promotion if Kayla wins.
And then there is Kelvin Gastelum and Joe Pyfer. I like Pyfer a lot in that one, but I'm excited to see Patchy Mix. And this is where, for me, going to see fights in Mohegan Sun under the Bellator brand, I got introduced to this guy So for me, there's a little bit of a different connection. There was the wonder of how do they bring Patchy Mix into the UFC? Well, to hell with it. The spot opened up, and you throw him right on the main card against the guy who is no slouch in Mario Bautista. I think for me, Jay, it's more of the, like, I saw Patchy Mix. I saw, like, when you see this guy, it's okay, he really should be here in this spot in this moment. I think he's going to blend in right away, but it's not like, they gave him Ham Hands Harry for his first fight as a welcome to the UFC. It's let's throw you right on the pay-per-view card, and we're going to find out if Patchy Mix is a real contender pretty quickly, I think.
I agree. I absolutely love this fight. And my guy, Corey Sandhagen, who lays back in the cut, I can't get him off my mind. And I expect Corey Sandhagen to compete for a championship at some point. I would love to know what the conversation was like for Mario Bautista, who's won 7 straight. Whoever that next opponent was going to be, maybe, I don't know if he saw Patchy Mix necessarily showing up in his bracket, but you may be getting the best bantamweight in the world, right?
Yeah.
To sort of, as your step to get into that championship opportunity. So be really interesting.
It is pretty crazy. And then Vicente Luque, Kevin Holland round out the pay-per-view. It is in Newark, New Jersey, and it should be a ton of fun. I'm sure that the crowd will absolutely show out, and anything to make up for what happened last weekend. I don't like criticizing the UFC. That was the worst fight card they've ever put on outside of the controversy of the main event. Yikes, that just wasn't a good one. So luckily they're following it up with a pay-per-view and making people like me and others happy. Jay is kind of hanging out in LA this week, making big money moves, while me, I'm just a big goof working on ESPN Radio tonight, 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. on game night, and got a bunch of ESPN Radio lined up over the next 2 weeks, kind of during the NBA Finals. I'm on when the finals are not, although I think I might be on with the night game 6 drop. So if it goes 6, like you said, I might be there for that. You can catch me on Sirius XM on Saturday, 8 a.m. to noon. And my cat just walked underneath me, and I felt his tail hit my leg, and I almost shit my pants. Because I'm thinking, there's a critter under here. I can't see anything. What the hell's going on? He scared the crap out of me. And, of course, download the John Anik app. Make sure you're downloading there. Lots of content on the John Anik app, Jay. I've been following along. You guys are pumping it out, baby.
Yeah, and I will say with that John Anik app, the main initiative right now is some of the behind-the-scenes stuff. I think we're going to have a crew with us for International Fight Week, potentially sort of following John and I around to see who else creeps in. But I said to them yesterday, I mean, some of those moments in the Fighter Hotel where you're crossing paths with all these fighters and my brother's acting like a clown, fun to see some of that stuff.
I love it. That is the good stuff. All right, everybody, have a great week. Make sure you rate, review, subscribe, click the and follow us so that you know whenever Gas goes live. It's usually every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Follow our guy Cody Merrow on Twitter at Cody_Merrow. You can get him on Instagram as well. That's it for us. That's it for Gas. We'll see you next week.